Welcome, everyone. The session will begin shortly and will be recorded. We invite for you to connect with the campaign for grade level reading on social media and to use the hashtag Learning Tuesdays to tag us to tweet anything you learned from today's session, which we'll be sure to retweet. Okay, once again, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sierra Sanchez, and I'll be behind the scenes helping to produce the conversation. I have just a few housekeeping details before we get started. First, we'd love for you to introduce yourself using the chat box at the bottom of the screen. We also encourage you to post any questions you might have in the Q&A box, also located at the bottom of your screen. The webinar is being recorded and live streamed on Facebook. The recording, as well as any resources or slides you see shared during the presentation, will be sent in a follow-up email to everyone who registered for the session. And finally, we'll have a brief poll towards the end of the conversation and highly encourage you to respond, as this helps us with our commitment to continuous improvement. Before we get started, I would like to encourage all of you to keep the date of March 30th in mind. During then, we'll be having a conversation on Get to Know Math Talk. Information will be posted in the chat box, and we hope you can join us. Joining you now is Jess Tilley, math specialist with the Philadelphia School District and current consultant with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. Thank you and enjoy the webinar.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am thrilled to kick off this fun-filled webinar on behalf of the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. We've worked hard as an organization to message the critical importance of reading to children, but what if reading beautiful books to children could not only support their literacy skills, but could also engage them in number sense, math joy, and math identity? I'm happy to introduce our moderator for this event, Kirsten Bohl, who coordinates a children's book list I encourage you all to check out called Mathical. This list of children's books are inspiring kids from preschool, elementary, middle, and high school to see themselves as joyful and energized readers and thinkers in relation to the mathematics in their own lives and in the everyday world. The prize is organized by the Simons-Laufer Mathematical Sciences Institute, or SL Math, and SL Math desires to offer a continuous pathway for very young children through adults from historically excluded groups to join a wider mathematics community from a place of joy, authenticity, and belonging. Welcome, Kirsten.
Thank you, Jess, and welcome, everybody. I'm really glad to be here with you today, and I look forward to sharing more about the Mathical Book Prize and the Mathical list at the end of the webinar. But for the moment, we really want to jump into the playful, enjoyable content that we've prepared for you. We've got an all-star lineup of authors, illustrators, book advocates of many kinds and descriptions. And today will be in sort of 4 acts. Act 1, 2, 3, 4. Each one has a mathical book at the heart of it, and we invite you to sit back, relax, and play with us with each of those books. So I'd like the first group to come on screen with me. They include Miguel Tanko. He is a picture book maker, and today you will know him as the author and illustrator of a beautiful children's picture book, Count on Me. Araceli Moreno-Lomelli. I know her as a Mathical committee member. She's also an adult bilingual librarian, among other identities. And Herb Ginsberg, who has created some wonderful reading guides with the DREAM, D-R-E-M-E organization to go with some of these books. And Herb knows a lot about early childhood education and math and literacy. So with that, I am going to step out and let these 3 wonderful folks take it from here. Enjoy. Count on Me is our first act.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to this webinar. My name is Miguel Tanko. I'm an author and illustrator of picture books. Today I'm going to read my book, Count on Me. Before I start to read, I want to share some of my motivation for this book, for making this book, because I think they're important and maybe they can be useful for everyone. At the beginning, I want to make a book about how everything could be artistic, you know, like how cooking could be artistic, how physics could be artistic, how sport could be artistic. But then I realized that there was something more important than being artistic. Everything, you can find poetry and everything, but for me, it was more important to find your passion. That was key for me. Having a passion, follow the passion, a passion that you can be devoted to, that you can share, that you can invest your time, that you can be proud of. And the other important thing was that you can share this passion. Okay, some passion are very easy to share. Mine is very easy. I'm an illustrator, so I can show you my pictures, and immediately you can see my passion. You can see my art, my poetry. Others are more difficult to share. Like, for example, my wife is a lawyer. She's a lawyer. She has difficult to share in the passion. But so I choose math because it's a great passion that you can share. And this girl in this book, I wanted to make sure that she always shared the passion with the family, with the friends, with the brother, and let's read the book. Let's see how it turns this girl. Let me share the screen. Just a second. Just a second. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. Okay. The book is called Count on Me. Let's go to the next page. It's the introduction. You can see here some of the numbers. Next page. At home, everyone has their own passion. My dad has one. Next page. And my mom has another one. Next page. My brother loves music and he's getting very good at it. And next page. At school, there are all sorts of activities that could be my passion. You can see, as I talked before, you know, the cooking, painting. You can see this is not very good at anything. Next page. I've tried them all, but they just aren't for me. It's not very good. Next page. There is one thing I really like though, math. I want to share this with you. Everyone is painting. Next page. Math is all around us. It's often hidden, and I love finding it. There are geometric figures on the playground. Next page. And when we go to the lake, I skip stones to see the concentric circles forming the water. We live in a wall of shapes, and I like to play with them. It's fun for me to find the perfect curve. It's a little revolution there. Next page. And solve difficult group problems. Next page. I use math every day. Next page. I know that my passion can be hard to understand. I like the face of the father here. And there ticks these people. Next page. But there are infinite ways to see the world. You can see through music, through animals, through art, through painting, to choose math. But there are infinite ways to see the world. Next page. And math is one of them. Okay, this is the end of the book. Then there's a little mini story where here you can see that she has a journal. So in the journal, she wrote all the math that she learned in the book. Maybe her will talk about this. I want to share also the dedication, I don't know how to say, to the people who follow their passion and reach the stars. I hope everyone here could reach his, her own star. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing a little background on the story, Miguel, and also reading Count on Me. Just some feedback I wanted to highlight from the audience so far is that while you were reading, they loved it already. This is such a beautiful book. I love how math is embedded in everyday activities. And math is beautiful. The vocabulary, the concentric circles, the geometric shapes, math is everywhere and in everything. I really enjoyed that as well. There is a question that someone posed as well for people who are already using the book in the classroom already. How are people responding to it? I love the end paper and the connection to the flooring in the apartment in the story. I love the illustration. So just like in general, very love and support of the family as well. All very positive feedback here. Yes, and then just the name of the book again is Count on Me, and it was read by the author and illustrator, Miguel Tanko.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, they can have there's an activity book. There are many activity books of the book, but there's one that the publisher and me did. It's on the web of the publishers, Tundra Books, or in my website, migueltanko.com.
And you said this is an activity book that they also can have along with.
Sure, they can download it and they can print it, or there are many activities to do with the book already on the activity book. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much. So now I will also now transition it over to Herb, and he actually created a reading guide through Mathical, where it inspires different activities that you're able to do along with Count on Me. So take it away, Herb. Any questions that you have, you can also post in the Q&A session or in chat as well.
Hey, thank you very much. I'd like to see a picture of the story guide now, please. There it is. With my former student, Colleen Yashinowski, I've been creating a series of storybook guides for Mathical and also for Dream. And you can see the Dream name up there and the Dream, the link to the website, We have, I don't know, I think now maybe 40, 50, even 60 guides to some, we think, wonderful math storybooks. So you're welcome to take a look. The guide has several features. First part, as you see on the left, is called About the Story. I won't say much about that, except that in a small amount of words, it's intended to capture the essence of the book. So when you leaf through these guides, you can have an idea what they're about. For some reason, I find this the hardest thing to write in the whole guide, to capture the essence of the author's important ideas in a small space. I point out words that the child of a particular age might not know when reading the book. And then in the middle, you'll see about the math. And you notice, of course, in the case of Miguel's book, I do cover some math ideas, but mostly talk about point out that most of the theme is about the love of math, identity, and the like. In many of the books, when I point out the math, I get the reaction from people that often they didn't realize there was so much math in the book, particularly if it's taking place in everyday environment and not in a school. So it's very important to be aware of the different mathematical ideas in the book. I'd like to talk mostly about what's in the right-hand column. The first topic is talk during reading. And this is based on the idea that it's very important to interact with the child and share ideas as you are reading, page by page. Of course, you're not going to elaborate on every single page, or you're not going to get through with the book. You have to use discretion. But it's really important to engage with the child in a conversation about what's happening in the book. I'm trained originally as a developmental psychologist, and for me, the thing that really stands out is, what does the child make of this book? We, as adults, may interpret it in one way, and we think that, oh yeah, the child will see it the same way we do, but that's not always the case. So you want to ask yourself, as the reader of the book, what is the child making of this? And not only what does the child make of it, but what could the child make of it? The conversation can lead the child into considering some new ideas that the child had not thought about a great deal yet. And so the questions that we have here have to do with, the first one is mathematical. Let's talk about the shapes. I'd like to focus more on the feeling questions. And here the idea is, how do you think this child in the story thinks about all these important ideas like a passion? How does the child feel when she sees that another child loves to dance, but she may not? So these, I believe, are really, really important. And I urge you to make up some questions of your own now that you would like to, that you think would be useful in the reading interaction with the child. I know I haven't got all the relevant questions down here. There are many, many more. And of course, some of this is a matter of individual style and your passions, your interests. So what are some more questions? Then we also have finally at the end, an activity after reading. And we hope that parents, teachers, whoever the readers are, will follow up with the children after the book and extend some of the ideas. And this list that we have here encourages introspection on the part of the child. What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? What are you not? Very often kids are not asked by adults what their interests are, what the child's interests are. And here's a chance for the child to speak up. The next question, I'm actually very curious about what will happen. Can you make a list of these passions of your friends? I really don't know to what extent the kids will be aware of these. I really don't know what will happen when you ask this kind of question. I would love to find out. So if any of you have other, we can discuss some of this here, of course, but please contact me if you can answer some of these questions. So I hope that the guide, these guides will be useful. And I hope you enjoy all of these books about which we have written. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb, for sharing that. I'm not sure if you wanted to make a comment about this page as well.
Oh, let's leave it for now. Thank you.
Okay, so yes, thank you for highlighting this additional resource that can be used along with the Count on Me story. We have some feedback here as well from the audience. Love these guides, especially the ones that focus on math identity with our early learners. These guides are helpful for both families and teachers. Yes, an additional resource that can be utilized to supplement the reading that you've done with a child. And also, again, I think that overall Count on Me just highlights the inspiration of math and just joy and math identity. So really great. Thank you for joining us and for the comments and for learning along with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wonder if anybody can see me. I can't see myself yet. Hey, there I am. Thank you so much to Herb and Araceli, and perhaps especially Miguel, for kicking off today's event with such beautiful inspiration. That was a joy. Thank you. You will see those three again at the end if you've got questions for them. So hang on to those questions. Let them keep building. In the meantime, we're ready for Act 2. I would like to invite to come on camera our next trio, Carolyn Pfister and Naomi Reilly work together with the California Early Math Project. And they are joined by Raki Dodia, and Raki works with the Early Math Collaborative of the Erickson Institute. So these three fantastic women know a lot about early math, and we gave them the invitation to play with you today about wordless math. And we assigned them a wordless book from the Mathical list. The author is no longer living, or we would have invited him to, but it's you'll see in a minute, but it's Anno's counting book. So with that, I'm going to step back and turn things over to Raki and Carolyn and Naomi to share some things with you about wordless math. Get ready to participate. Thanks.
Thank you, Kristen. What a pleasure to be here. I want to give Carolyn and Naomi a chance to say hello, and that'll give me a chance to share my screen.
Thanks, Rocky. I'm Carolyn Pfister with the Early Math Project. Thrilled to be here today. Hi, everyone. I'm Naomi Reilly, and also with the Early Math Project.
Okay, and as Kristen mentioned, my name is Rocky Dodia. I'm part of Erickson's Early Math Collaborative. And if you haven't heard of our Early Math Collaborative, you should definitely check us out. We have a website full of resources. We have a monthly newsletter that we put out. And we even have a short article that I co-wrote, which expands on what I'm here to share with you all, using images to spark mathematical conversations. So math, of course, lives in our everyday experiences. It's all around us, right? As Miguel just shared with us in his beautiful book. But rarely are young children given opportunities to have focused conversations that support the development of mathematical reasoning, right? So I'm really referring to playful conversations about comparison, maybe conversations about visual number sense, these kinds of playful ways to introduce academic vocabulary that will later formalize to mathematical thinking. And we want to build that habit of mind in early childhood classrooms. And the best way to do that, or the only way to do that, is to carve out some time and space for children to have playful mathematical conversations. So in that spirit, we created a routine called Photo Chat. And it addresses all three components that you see here on the screen. So we call it an economical routine because it really targets more than one aspect of learning. It targets more than just math, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. It really fosters math identity and joy. The teachers that do this tell us it's fun. And then it really is centered on children's way of knowing. And I want to touch on that in a little bit too. So I first want to share with you all, how does it work, right? So let's take a look at a classroom engaging in this routine that we call Photo Chat. So here what you're seeing is the class is looking at one shared image and it's sparking conversation. They're all focusing their conversation on this photo that they're looking at. So to be clear, this routine was designed for digital images because of smartphones. Digital images are just incredibly accessible, right? But more importantly, photos can and should reflect your community, right? They can be meaningful to your student community and they can be hyper culturally relevant to your students, and they should be, right? So images can include maybe the paletero cart that comes after school, maybe your local crossing guard, maybe a scene from your neighborhood playground. It could be an image from a recent field trip, right? And for example, here in Chicago, where I am, winter is coming, and a picture of a neighborhood snowman, that would spark all kinds of joyful conversation in a classroom. So we're gathered here today to talk about developing joy and identity through literature. So we're going to put aside the photo idea, but I want you to know this is a protocol, a language building protocol you can absolutely use beyond just book reading. But we're going to engage in this with a carefully chosen book. So two of the most, we believe, powerful questions that we can ask young children are, what do you notice? And what do you wonder, right? This is how we center children's way of knowing, with these two, grounding in these two open-ended questions. And you may have noticed that I'm using some gestures, right, for notice and wonder. And this is really to help ground children in understanding those two, that vocabulary. There has been, the role of gestures in supporting language development has been very well documented, but it not only does it support all children, it's especially powerful for emergent bilinguals. So we really are advocates of that in using this protocol. So why don't we play around with the Notice and Wonder Photo Chat? with one of my favorite books, Anno's Counting Book. It is a wordless picture book, which lends itself perfectly to a photo chat. And my colleague Carolyn is going to help us begin. She's going to play the role of the teacher, and you are all the role of the learner. So as adults, I want to invite you all to bring all your language, all your funds of knowledge to the conversation via the chat. And then Carolyn, Naomi, and we will monitor the chat and share out loud what you all notice and wonder. Okay.
Thanks, Rocky. So let's notice and wonder with Anno's Counting Book. Next slide. We'd like you to listen, to look very carefully, build on the ideas that you hear, and bring your own connections to the story. And let's start by looking at this page very carefully. And I'll ask you to add into the chat what you notice.
Oh, I see someone's noticing a path, a road, lots of snow they're noticing.
Rocky, is there anything that you noticed that you'd like to share?
Oh, I'm noticing one river.
Naomi, is there anything you want to add on to that?
I'm noticing the number 0.
I noticed that too. Is
See
there
in the
anything
chat, someone
new?
also? Oh,
Please add what you're seeing in the chat, Naomi.
I also saw people noticing the number 0 in the chat.
Very good. And I see somebody saying that they're noticing 10 sticks. All right. Well, let's move on. And now you've had an opportunity to look very carefully at that page. And I'm wondering what questions come up from having looked at that page and what you might wonder.
Carolyn, somebody's wondering, is that a path or is that a river? Oh, someone's wondering, where does the road lead to? If it is a road or a river. We're still wondering about that.
I noticed that somebody is wondering where it is and if it's quiet in that location.
There's so much to wonder about.
Oh, and look, somebody has asked, why is it 0 when I see one river?
I was
And is that
wondering that too.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. Naomi, do you wonder anything about this picture?
I also wondered why it's 0 when there's one river. And it also looks like there's maybe one hill.
Yay. Somebody said, I wonder if the 0 refers to the absence of people or some other object. And somebody said, I wonder if the 10 blocks on the left side and the 0 connects to anything in the picture. Well, let's explore this a little bit further and see where the book takes us next. So I'll ask you again to look really carefully at what you're seeing. What do you notice? Rocky, would you maybe share one thing that you noticed from this page?
Oh, well, I noticed one snowman. I noticed one snowman. Oh my goodness, Carolyn, the chat is just flooding with things that people are noticing. One dog, one bridge, one house, one sun.
The snowman is holding a flag with the number 1, somebody noticed. And one house, but 2 chimneys. And
there
one
is
shovel.
So many things coming, I can't even keep up. That's so exciting to see what everyone is noticing.
Someone noticed a bridge over the river.
Somebody's noticing footprints leading a trail in the snow.
I just noticed that, I think, for the very first time. I hadn't noticed that before.
Me neither, actually.
Naomi, is there any one thing that you'd like to share that you noticed in this page?
I noticed that there's one door, but 10 windows.
Oh.
Well, we've noticed a lot. So let's now move on and see what we wonder. Is there anything that you wonder about?
I'm wondering, is that a ski lodge that he's skiing to? Because he looks like he's on a mission to get there.
See in the chat that people are wondering why there's only one tree. Someone wonders if the skier will hit the snowman.
Somebody says they wonder what the cube represents and they wonder how deep the snow is. Somebody wondered if the 0 was moved and the 1 replaced it. And somebody recognizes the number 1. Rocky, is there anything you would like to add before we move on to the next page?
The only thing I would add is listening and seeing what other people noticed is helping me all of a sudden notice new things that I've not discovered in this book before, which is pretty cool.
Me too.
I notice that every time I read this story that I notice something different.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. I wonder where the story will take us next. Things look a little bit different. What do you notice?
Let's see. Somebody noticed that the snow is melting.
I see somebody's noticing the 2 trucks and there's less snow.
Oh, someone is noticing 2 evergreen trees.
Someone noticed that there's a clock, and then someone also built on that and said it's 2 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody noticed that the river looks wider.
I noticed that the river looks brighter too. Looks like it's more vibrant.
Yeah. Well, before we wonder about this, is there anything else you want to add?
Oh, a couple people noticed that the roads are leading to 2 different directions. They're noticing 2 roads now.
Someone noticed that there's 2 windows possibly open. It looks like the blinds may have been opened on the outside.
Somebody's looking very carefully. All right, well, let's see what questions we have.
So someone is wondering, are the seasons changing? And that might be because someone else noticed that the snow was melting earlier.
Someone also is wondering if children will see that there's 2 buildings or 1 house and 1 church.
Somebody wonders if the truck's crushed or crunched. And somebody's suggesting that maybe it's the month of February.
Ah.
I wonder why.
Well, so many things that people are noticing, and I'm wondering, based on some of the things that we noticed, which is really, I think, important to think about. You always want to start with what you notice, and then that helps you go deeper into thinking about what you wonder. Carolyn, should we go deeper into the book?
I think so. Rocky, how about if you lead us on page 3?
Okay. So what are you all noticing now? Mhm.
So I noticed that there's some circles and ovals on that page.
Mhm. So many people in the audience are mentioning that they are noticing signs of spring. 3 tulips, 3 daffodils, 3 little kids holding up flowers. What else are they noticing?
Someone noticed that a yellow block was added to the side, the left-hand side.
Mhm.
Someone noticed that the trucks are gone.
Oh, yes. I just realized that.
And somebody noticed 3 butterflies.
Mhm. 3 butterflies. Oh, yes, flying up there. I'm wondering, what do you all wonder about? Someone is wondering, why are the flowers bigger than the humans? That is a good wonder. Mhm.
I also noticed that the butterflies seem to be really bigger than the humans too.
Yeah. And let's see.
Someone wonders who lives in the town.
So many good ones. Well, I know we have a couple more pages we want to share, so I'm going to go to the next page and see if what you all notice first, and then maybe we'll just take 1 or 2 wonderings. Lots of people are noticing the windows being open and closed, which I've never thought about. I see
People are noticing there's a new train and that there are 5 cars on that train.
Good detail.
And the tunnel has been added along with the train as well.
Someone notices a wedding.
Mhm. The people that are noticing 5 trains, if you're noticing that, I'm wondering in the chat, how are you noticing 5? How are you seeing 5? Five cars on the train. How did you figure out that that was 5? 5 cars at least. I see someone counted them. Other people said, oh, well, I see 4 cars, or I see 4 trailers, and then maybe 1 more holding the stack of wood. And maybe they aren't counting the engine. That's sort of what I was getting at. How do you see 5? How do you see 5 trees? How do you see 5 buildings? Because kids will see them in all different ways, and it's really fun it's a great opportunity for them to talk about that. 5 cats, 5 dogs. Okay.
Somebody noticed too, and this is kind of going back to the prior slide, that the evergreen trees have grown really tall. So they've been wondering about the passage of time since the beginning.
Oh, yes. That is such a good wonder. Well, I want to make sure that we get to share with them towards the end of the book. Naomi, I'm going to pass it to you. I'm wondering in the audience if you are all thinking about what's the last page in this book? What do you think possibly the last page in this book might be?
Yeah, so if we can we'll do a quick notice here because I know we're getting close to our end of the
Yes.
time.
Yeah, exactly. Some people are thinking 100 or 1,000.
Or
Some people are noticing it's fall. The seasons have
Mhm.
changed again.
People are noticing the town has really expanded
Yeah.
Very much so.
and they're agreeing with each other. They're building onto that idea.
Naomi, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna give you that last page and then have you lead you into your resources that you want to share.
Thank you. Yeah. So let's just do this last page. What do we notice in this one? People are noticing that it's winter.
Mhm.
I notice that there are 12 reindeer flying through the sky, but they're not pulling anything.
Oh, I want to build on that. I noticed 12, but I saw a row of 6 and another row of 6.
That's great. Let's do a quick, what do you wonder?
Mhm.
I wonder if Santa's going to fly across the screen in a minute.
Oh, someone wonders why the train and the train tracks are gone.
Mhm. Wow. Although it was silent and just the 3 of us, so much conversation was happening in the chat, and you can imagine how much fun children would have talking about just these 2 questions. How do you notice and wonder? And in a playful way, we were able to get to some really nice math. Okay, so I should stop sharing my screen, right, Naomi?
Yes, and I will share my screen quickly. Oh, let's see. All right, so I'm just going to go over some quick resources with everyone. So we're first starting here. We're on the Early Math Project website, and up on my screen, I am showing our book guide, our Discovering the Math book guide for Aona's counting book. This book guide is a free resource on our website, and this resource explores the mathematical concepts found in the book, provides corresponding activities to go along while reading and after reading, includes discussion questions and math connections that can be used in different learning settings and at home. So these book guides are great for educators and families to use when reading a story to a child to develop math concepts and extend thinking. Each of the book has their own page like this found on our website, and you can navigate, to that book review here, and then also all the fun activities on the right-hand side. All of the books that we do, these book guides for and activities can be found on this children's literature page, which is under our books, activities, and videos tab. Under this tab also, there's a lot of other resources that you should check out. We have Count, Play, Explore-ish.
It looks like we are having some technical difficulties with Naomi. Kirsten, if you could come on and move us on to Chris, that would be great.
Sure. And Naomi, I'm so sorry that that we lost you there for a moment. Thank you so much to the 3 friends who just shared with us about wordless math activities, particularly with Anno's counting book. That was super fun. I promised you 4 acts. It's time for Act 3. And all together today, we have 3 trios and a single with a helper. So it's time for our single with a helper. This would be Christopher Danielson, who might turn his camera on, aided by Jess Tilley, whom you met earlier. Maybe we could see a slide about Christopher. There you go. So I know Christopher as the author of the Mathical book, Which One Doesn't Belong? He's also got a couple of really wonderful websites, including Talking Math with Your Kids, and then kind of a sub-site about activities at the Minnesota State Fair. Super fun. And then Jess Tilley is going to come back and be his sort of, I don't know if aide de camp is the right word, but they're going to have a little bit of a duet here. So it's time for some fun with shapes, everybody. Roll up your sleeves. I'll give you a hint. The answer to which one doesn't belong, there's not just one answer. Okay. All right. Take it away, Christopher and Jess.
Yeah, good afternoon and morning to folks, wherever you are. Jess, can you give me just a quick thumbs up that you can hear me? I've been on mute for so long. Excellent. We are here to play a little Which One Doesn't Belong, which is inspired by the very familiar Sesame Street routine. On Sesame Street, typically there is one right answer. For example, there's a beautiful video of Grover who is trying to decide which of 4 circles doesn't belong. There are 3 big ones and 1 small. And so the goal is to get Grover and the children watching to pay attention to size. In the version of Which One Doesn't Belong that we will play, I have collected a number of geometry examples into a shapes book that has a lot of richness to it, and is inspired both by Sesame Street as well as by other folks who have been doing work in thinking about how do we make that beautiful routine, how do we make it more rich, more nuanced, and give us lots more to talk about. And so in this example, we have 4 shapes. In a moment, I'll ask people to put their answers into the chat, but don't do that yet so everyone has a chance to think. And then we'll do some, Jess is going to help out by annotating, collecting the various ways so that as we proceed through the conversation, we can, it'll be easier for us to revisit some of the things that have already come up. So there are 4 shapes. The goal is for you to decide which one of those is unlike the others for you, but with a heads up that the set has been designed so that any one of those 4 shapes could be the one that doesn't belong. So you're not trying to guess the right answer. You're not trying to guess what I had in mind when I drew up this set of shapes. Instead, what you're trying to do is get better at noticing the various kinds of ways that shapes might be like or unlike each other. And so, for example, if I might choose the shape in the upper left, and so in a moment, I'll invite you to go into the chat and you can use UL for upper left. You can type those words out. You can name the shape if that's helpful for you. In a classroom, of course, or we would have gesturing. Kids would be both talking and gesturing and pointing to the various places. Not an opportunity that we have as we're working in a webinar. And of course, if we're looking at the book together, then it's a much more intimate experience and there's no ambiguity about which shapes we're talking about. We can just point to the various shapes. So because any one of the 4 shapes could be chosen as the one that doesn't belong, it is also important for you to let us know how it is you're seeing that shape. So a good answer to which one doesn't belong tells us what properties you're attending to, how the shape that you're looking at is different from the others, or how the others are like it, and the shape you've chosen doesn't have that property. So I'm going to stop talking for just a moment, give you a chance. I see we've already got some things coming up. I see some people who are saying lower left or triangle. Remember, we want to make sure we also say why. What is it about the lower left shape? And as I'm looking through, sorry, I said I'd give you a moment, so I'll do that right now. Yeah, so Jess, here are a couple of things I'm going to ask you to capture for us. When I look through for the triangle, I see some people saying different things about the triangle. Somebody said that the triangle has 3 corners, which is a different number of corners than the others have. And somebody else who said, I chose the triangle because it has 3 sides. As an adult learner, those sound to me like they're exactly the same as each other. but I've worked now, having been playing Which One Doesn't Belong with children and adults of all ages, I have learned that it's actually a thing that you have to learn. That one child says it has 3 corners, another child says that it has 3 sides. It's not obvious to either of those children that they have said the same thing. The fact that a shape has, a polygon has the same number of sides as it does corners is a thing to learn. And so when I'm working with a group of students, we'll make sure to list those both out, validate both of them. Not a quadrilateral, I see Jess has captured, which again is in some sense, to some of us, is a restatement of the fact that it has 3 sides and the others have 4. But it's important in Which One Doesn't Belong, whether we're in a classroom or whether we're sitting on a couch reading the book together. It's important that you don't need the vocabulary, you don't need the words in order to be able to talk about the ideas. So if we're in classrooms, if somebody does use the word quadrilateral, that's great. We'll honor it exactly the same way as we will somebody who says this one has 4 sides. Exactly the same way as somebody who thinks they have a vocabulary word, but it's not quite the right one. This isn't a game about vocabulary, it's a game about getting better at discerning and noticing properties. So in talking about the triangle, people were counting the sides, they were counting the corners, they were using some vocabulary words. In the upper right-hand corner, Jess has captured that somebody was talking about the size of the angles. So if what we're looking at is how big the angles are, then the square doesn't belong because it's the only one that has right angles and none of the others do. Sometimes angle measure will be something that people attend to with the triangle, and they'll say the triangle doesn't belong because it's the only one where all of its angles are less than 90 degrees. The square has exactly 90 degrees, and the 2 shapes down at the bottom have some that are bigger and some that are smaller, but the triangle, they're all less than 90 degrees. So again, which one doesn't belong is a super open question. The correct answer depends on what it is you're paying attention to. And in a sufficiently large group of people, it is almost always the case, even though I've now worked with this image and literally thousands of people. It's almost always the case that somebody will have a new way of talking about one of these shapes. So it's not just that there's more than one shape that could be the answer, but also that each shape has more than one reason. Down in the lower left, I see Jess has captured open, which I assume is pointing to the fact that it's not colored in and the others are colored in. Often when I talk with adults, they might be a little bit apologetic about that. Sometimes a parent or a teacher will say, that lower left one is the one that doesn't belong, but I don't think it really counts. Like my reason doesn't count. And there are 2 important messages there for me. One of them is that it actually is a mathematical property, whether it helps us attend to a mathematical property, that when I'm looking at those other 3 shapes that are colored in, that sort of suggests to me the area, the amount of space that they take up. And when I'm looking at the shape in the lower right, all I see is are the edges, the boundary. And that difference between the interior space, which we measure by area, and the boundary, which we measure by perimeter, later on when children are older is going to be a really big deal. And so having that be an opportunity for conversation is actually really helpful in classrooms, or again, sitting at home on the couch. So all properties, don't worry about whether you know that they're mathematical, that doesn't matter. But also, like even further, the very activity of paying attention to one property, say number of sides, and saying if number of sides is what we're paying attention to, then the upper left one, that triangle doesn't belong. But if we're paying attention to a different property, I'm going to resort them. That's a profoundly mathematical activity. It has to do with abstraction. It has to do with advanced, like later on ideas that will have to do with equivalence, equality, sameness. Those are really, really important mathematical ideas. I'm almost out of time, but I also want to talk to you about the lower right, because in the lower right is beautiful because it is hard to come up with a reason for the shape in the lower right to not belong. For high school teachers, and very easy for kindergartners and the people who work with them, because high school teachers and lots of adults have been trained that in geometry, we don't pay attention to what direction something is pointing. Orientation isn't a thing that matters. kindergartners are all about that orientation, how shapes are put together, what direction they're facing, whether it's still a square when it's standing on its point. And so that's, it's always delightful to have an adult who gets stumped by the lower right and then invite a kindergartner over into the conversation to point out a thing that adults, we often don't notice. So which one doesn't belong? Look at that, 8 minutes and it was only one page. And the beginning page, things get more complicated. There are more interesting and nuanced relationships as you work your way through the book. No wrong answers. The measure of what's right is what's true. And that's what the conversation is going to be about.
Thank you so much, Christopher and Jess. That was marvelous. And for those of you who are teaching in a classroom, I seem to recall that that the publisher also made a teacher's guide, so you can get this book on its own or with the teacher's guide set, in case you'd like to know a little more yourself going into those conversations. Well, that was great fun. Thank you. So for our Act 4 of 4, we have another trio. I'd like to invite to turn on their cameras Marlene Kleiman and Anna Crespo and Dr. Christopher Childs, and they're going to come on camera with me. So Anna Crespo is the author of the Mathical book for this act. It's called Leah and Louise. Which one? Wait a minute, I was going to say which one doesn't belong. No, that's where we just were. Leah and Louise, who has more? It's a different question. All right. And Marlene Kleiman has collaborated with Anna. Marlene works with, among other things, the Charles Bridge Storytelling Math series, of which this happens to be a part, and she'll say more about that. And then I'm so happy that Christopher Childs can be with us today. I know him as a Mathical selection committee member. He's here today also representing Open Up Resources, and we're just honored to have this group. I will turn it over to them. Take it away.
Okay, so I'm Marlene. I'm delighted to be here. So I'm going to talk briefly about why I started up a new effort involving math and picture books. So for many years, I've run projects both for in-school and out-of-school audiences involving math with audiences like childcare providers, parents, and librarians. And a lot of those efforts have involved picture books in some ways. And my collaborators and I have found very few picture books that incorporate 3 qualities that we sought. One is racial diversity. A lot of the math picture books in print have animal and white main characters, but few have main characters of color, and very few are written by authors of color. Another important quality is math content beyond counting and shapes. There's lots of counting and shapes books out there, but research shows that it's also important for young children to experience a much wider range of early math, including patterns, spatial relationships, and sorting and classifying. Finally, few math picture books offer the qualities that we often look for in great children's literature. Mathical winners excluded, but many math picture books in print are concept books, or they focus more on the math and on stories with character development, compelling narrative, social and emotional themes that reflect the lives of young children. And yet, books with those literary qualities can be a stellar way to draw in kids and adults into math. And again, there are some great books out there with all these qualities, there just aren't enough of them. So it seemed like time to spark some change. With partial support from the Ising-Simons Foundation, I started working with Charles Bridge to develop Storytelling Math. These are a collection of fiction picture books that address a wide range of math topics, that feature main characters of color, are almost all written and illustrated by creators of color, and have emotionally resonant and beautifully illustrated stories. Next slide, please. So here are the books we have so far, with more coming out in the next few years, some coming out this spring. The books are also available in Spanish, English, bilingual editions. In addition to the math and the story itself, each book includes math information and activity ideas, and a link to free downloadable resources for home libraries and educational settings, also in English and Spanish, and with some for selected books in other languages as well, including Chinese, Brazilian, Portuguese, and Cherokee. So Anna's book, Leah and Louise, Who Has More, is one of the first we published when the series began in late 2020. It's a Mathical Award winner, as are two of our other books. So to give you a flavor of our approach, I'm going to turn this over to Anna for a dive into the book and some audience participation. Anna?
You need to unmute.
So sorry. Okay, we can go through this 1,000 times, and we've been doing this for so long, and I always forget to unmute. Sorry. Anyhow, I'm Anna Crespo, and I am the author of a few books, including a couple of storytelling math books. I am originally from Brazil, and my storytelling math books feature Brazilian American characters, Lee and Louise. Lee and Louise, like my own kids, speak both English and Portuguese. The first book, Lee and Louise, Who Has More, like Marlene said, is a Mathical Book Prize winner in the pre-K category. The second book comes out in March and is called Lee and Louise Puzzled. One thing that I love about these titles is that the first one is all about sibling rivalry, and the second one is all about collaboration. Now, there was a lot of thought, Marlene knows this very well, put into these two characters and these two stories, and I could talk about it for a very long time, but we just have a few minutes. So I'll stick with the inspiration for the first book. Lee and Louise, Who Has More, was inspired by a question that my parents used to ask me when I was little. What weighs more, a kilo of cotton or a kilo of lead? And of course, they both weigh a kilo, but a kilo of cotton takes a lot more space than a kilo of lead, and that can be so misleading to a child. So that is the premise of the story, except that I use Brazilian snacks in place of cotton and lead. So the idea really was to develop a story in which the reader would be invited to figure out the mystery of who has more, along with the characters. So I'll go ahead and read the first few pages of the book so you can get a feel for it. Again, it's Lee and Louise, Who Has More, illustrated by Giovanna Medeiros and published by Charles Bridge. And I'll just follow along on the screen. So Louise is always quick to brag. My tower is taller. Usually his sister doesn't mind. Next page. I know. Leah enjoys taking her time. But when they run downstairs to their family's store and pick their favorite Brazilian snacks, I want biscoito de polvilho, papai, coxinhas de galinha, please. Louise starts bragging, I have more, and Leah doesn't like it. For once, Louise has a point. His bag of tapioca biscuits is bigger than Leah's bag of croquettes. It is taller, wider, deeper. Louise must have more. And that's where I am going to stop. But I do want to remind you, as Marlene said, that every storytelling math book includes a final page with a note from a math specialist with suggested activities. And Charles Bridge also put together free downloadable activity guides, and they're available on their website. And I believe on the information that you'll be receiving later today as well. And I also have, I'm sorry, Dr. Charles, I was a little confused. I am not sure now if you jump in or if I go on.
I can jump in and introduce the activity part and then go on with the activity, your activity.
Sure.
What we want to do is, we love Jamboards. You got to see a Jamboard in the previous presentation. Is as the book has been read and we've gone through it, just thinking about what is one activity you could do with your students based upon this book and this story. What's cool with the Jamboard, we're going to drop the link within the chat. You have an opportunity to click one of the sticky notes beneath the arrow. And then when you click the sticky note, it'll provide you a chance to type out what is the possible activity you can do with students within your classroom. And in this example, someone has said a counting activity. And then what's pretty cool, I know the ending of the story, there are other activities you can do also as you read this story. But as we're going through this further example, just utilize the Jamboard to post what are some activities you believe can be done based upon the current story and what you know about the story.
Awesome. So I am going to go ahead and suggest one activity that I really enjoy. I love this activity because it mimics what Lee and Louise go through in the book, but instead of using food or cotton and lead, I am using balls. And coincidentally, I was listening to Rocky and Carolyn and Naomi, and I think this really goes well with the questions that they were asking. What do you notice? And what do you wonder? So you can start with at least 2 balls. And I suggest a big beach ball and a small baseball. Which ball is bigger? Which one is heavier? Which one takes more space? So these are some of the questions that Lee and Louise were considering, right, throughout the story. Of course, like in Lee and Louise, the smallest one in this case is also the heaviest one. And so if you haven't read the book yet, I have already given you the ending. So sorry for the spoiler. And then what happens if you go ahead and you introduce a soccer ball? So which one is the heaviest now? And you can also, besides comparing sizes and weights and etc., you can also go further. It gives you the opportunity to encourage the kids to think beyond. For example, I wonder which ball goes further, and why is it that the lightest ball doesn't go as far as the heaviest one, and so on. Oh, this is the heaviest, sorry, the lightest, and so on. So I really like this activity. It's something that you can do inside the classroom, you can do outside. There are many places where you can play. You can do it as a parent as well. So anyhow, that's it for me, and excited to find out what you guys are posting on the Jamboard.
And as folks are posting, we're seeing counting activities, connecting to students' lived lives. Snacks are always a great activity with young learners. Talking about the weight, who has less activity, a ball activity, making towers. So a lot of very cool activities folks are coming up with. And what is great about the Jamboard, you can access this link after we finish the presentation to go back to what are some of those ideas that was discussed during the time.
Thank you so much. This is really a treat. I feel like I'm ready to go out and get a beach ball, a soccer ball, and a baseball. Do you have more things that you want to share? I don't want to be stepping in prematurely. You let me know where we're at here, folks. Anna and Christopher, are we feeling complete?
Well, one thing that I like to always mention is that how I'm not going to be able to pronounce this word, the interdisciplinary nature of these books. And because with comparison, obviously there is a lot of math and as well, but there is a lot of language arts opportunities as well. So this is the biggest, this is the smallest, this is bigger than this. And so there is so much that you can do with these books. A book doesn't only have to be a math book, it can be used in other opportunity in other lessons as well. And so I always like to mention it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I've heard other groups talk about mathematizing all children's books. I think it's
that's great. Yeah.
Xeno books are adept at that. Okay. Well, I'm going to say thank you again to this group of 3. That was wonderful. You'll see them back in a moment if you've got more questions. And like Christopher said, keep your eye on that Jamboard for ideas. So, oh, and I'm seeing neat things in the chat. All right, so folks, we are winding toward a close here. The next thing we'd like to do is take just about a minute and step back, and I've got a couple, just 2 tiny slides about the Mathical list so that you're aware that there are not only 4 books in it, but a lot. And then we'll invite all of our presenters back on for the last 10 plus minutes to do some Q&A. So if I could have a slide about Mathical, that would be great. There we go. So this is a very simple slide. I just want you to know that you'll be receiving some follow-up resources about how to find the whole list, which, oh my gosh, what, 80 some books by now? I hope I'm right about that. It's certainly that many, maybe more. And it actually goes, we've been focusing on early math today, but we've got age groups 2 to 4, 5 to 7, 8 to 10, even 11 to 13, 14 to 18. We always take suggestions. Somebody wrote in the chat earlier on about a book that they love. Please go to the Mathical Books website, make your suggestions. And then, of course, we want to honor new books from publishers each year that draw kids into math joy in their everyday lives. Next slide, please. I just need to thank the IAS with whom we present Mathical, NCTM and NCTE, our educational colleagues with this prize, Children's Book Council, our liaison to the publishers, and then folks who provide the funding that makes it happen, Feyerdahl Foundation and the Jacobs. Okay, that was my small pitch for Mathical. Now, I would love for all of our presenters to come back on camera, and let's see if we've got more questions to share, because if we do, we've got some time for questions and discussion. And I am going to look at the chat and see if there are any others that are coming in. Okay. Oh, look at this fabulous group. All right. So I do not see open questions in the Q&A and chat right now. So what I'm going to do while the participants are warming up to ask a question is I'm going to open it up to this group. Presenters just heard from each other for the first time in most cases. Is there an observation somebody would like to make within this group? We've got a few minutes together. The floor is open.
Kirsten, I'd just like to say something. Naomi dropped off a little bit at the end, and I wanted to let everyone know that on the Early Math Project website, which is earlymathca.org, that there is a presentation from Rocky Dodia and Janine Brownwell at the last symposium that we did. So if people are interested in more about Notice and Wonder, that's a great resource for them.
Great. And that is coming in your set of resources too. All right, so I'm seeing in the chat, this is needed, can't wait to explore deeply. I'm also sensing, I think I'm going to say sort of a pleasant fatigue, maybe, with the audience and the presenters. Like we've come, we've done our part, we've all played hard, we've played well. So let's just thank everyone. We could give all of our presenters, give each other a round of applause, sparkles, whatever you're in the mood to do today. And we'll hold that for 5-6 seconds, and then we're going to wink out, and Jess is going to come back on and close it out. Thank you so much to all of our presenters today, and we'll see you in the land of Mathical. All right, back over.
I had a quick question before we transition. I would love to hear, what is everyone's favorite book to use in math on this panel?
Oh, okay, it's not a contest, but go ahead and add in the chat. If you got especially inspired today by one of them, feel free. And I'm going to step out, Jess, and leave this to you. All right. Is that okay? All right. All right. So I'm going to turn off my camera, and I'm going to invite presenters to have Jess close us out. Thank you so much, everybody. All right. Take care.
All right, but before we do, I want to hear from the presenters, actually, the panelists. What is your favorite math book that you've either used with your children in your sphere, or just a book that you love yourself that you'd like to share?
I knew you weren't going to let us off so easy, Jess.
I wasn't.
I am a huge fan of One Last Marshmallow, which is in that math storytelling series. I wrote a blog post a while back about, it's by Grace Lynn, about just one perfect page. It's perfect from the mathematical development perspective. It's perfect from the like social emotional development story. Yeah, The Last Marshmallow, book by Grace Lynn.
Well, Grace has 4 more board books coming out in 2023 for the series. Yay.
And you just made me think about the, the marshmallow experiment, where you put the marshmallow in front of a child and you say, if you wait, you can have another marshmallow later, right? It'd be interesting
in this
to kind
one,
of pair
there
that
are
with the book.
3 marshmallows and 2 little children, and they're looking like very distressed, like, how are we going to share these? Well, Chris, I was going to say that since I work on editing fiction books, my all-time favorite nonfiction are Which Doesn't Belong, because when I first saw your book, I was just blown away. It's like, the world has needed this book for so long. So I love it.
I gotta agree with what Marilyn just said. Is a huge fan of your book, Christopher. We use it a bunch. And it's hard to top Graceland. That is a really good book. But I will say, I think I have winter on my mind, apparently. So I'm going to say The Mitten by Jan Brent. It's like that story where all the creatures shove themselves into a mitten. And it's got this beautiful kind of folk tale. I think it's a nod to Norwegian folk tale. It's a really lovely book. I recommend it.
And I'll jump in. I'm a little biased. This was an amazing book, not just because this was my teammate for this exercise, but I also love this book. If the world were 100 people, it takes a complex topic and makes it very simple for beyond just children, but adults. It's a great read also. If the world were 100 people.
I'm grateful to all the participants today. You all were amazing, and you just gave it your heart. Thank you. That was fun.
Any other favorite books?
Yeah, the book source that I can share also along with winter is Lemonade in Winter by Emily Jenkins. I read this book for Mathical, and it's basically a group of kids who have a lemonade stand in the wintertime. And so like collecting money during the time, promoting their sales, and just in the winter, it's a great and cute book for kids.
I'd be hard pressed to choose between 3 of them. I'm really a fan of Baby Goes to Market for younger kids. I really love the story Carrot and Pea. It's just, I don't know, it's such a layered tale for people of all ages. And I'm really very fond of The Animals Would Not Sleep, which is part of the Storytelling Math series. That's absolutely one of my all-time favorite books ever.
Well, I am very biased. I love all the storytelling math books. One of my favorites is, again, Essie. I love the storyline, and I love the math that it portrays as well. And yeah, I just really enjoy that book. So I'm very excited to see more things from Jenny. Yeah. And I think I have it here, but
Naomi, you have a favorite?
I'm really bad at picking favorites, but I also would have to say I have a couple.
I'll probably just give two. So I love Pressed Here. I think it's so fun. We have a book guide on it, and I think it's just such a fun thing to get kids up and moving to do too. So I would say that one, and then probably which other one do I love? I really like Bean 13. It was one of my first books that I've ever kind of worked with to look at it as a math lens, and it has always held a special place for me. But it's for those older kids, and I feel like there's a lot of different ways to connect math to it.
Miguel, how about you?
Sorry. Well, I love the book that I saw today. I really enjoy them, and I didn't know the one of Arno, since the last name was amazing. Also the Christopher, I love that book. I like a book that I remember called Crictor. It's not Mathical book, but there's some math inside because all the serpent are building the numbers, and I really like the sense of putting the non-fiction inside the fiction. I really like this kind of book.
I'm grateful for the suggestions coming in the chat too. Thank you everybody for letting those pour in.
Oh yeah, that's great. One of my favorites is Counting on Catherine, which is the story of Katherine Johnson. I'm excited because also in my work in Philadelphia, we've been trying to integrate books, particularly in kindergarten through second grade, and purchasing books that include Leah and Louise and Count on Me. We're still continuing to think about how we can really integrate literacy into the math classroom, because it just offers such an opportunity for children to connect with math and really see that math is everywhere. It's not just about being quick at calculations, but it's about making sense of the world. I just want to make sure we create one more space. If there's any words of inspiration that anybody wants to share about doing this work with our children, lifting up early math, I want to give everybody an opportunity to just jump on and share some of your brilliance before we sign off today.
I'm seeing a reminder in the chat again from a participant that early math often predicts later academic success well beyond math, and that's a helpful reminder. So even if you're not a math person by background, you're warmly invited to play in these waters, and I hope you do, and I hope you will, and I trust that you'll do beautifully. So you're in good company. Exactly. We're all math people.
Yeah, children are brilliant. We can use books to help open up and help us as adults notice that brilliance.
And I can't think of a better way to get adults who like to read to engage in with their children in mathematics. It's just such a natural way to support that and build upon a successful activity that they're probably doing already.
And books don't have to be about math. You can read a book and you can always ask questions, whether it's what do you notice, what do you wonder, how many. There's so many ways to integrate math into whatever it is that you're reading. So with that, if anybody if there's nothing anybody else wants to say, I'll close this out. But I just want to thank you all for joining us today for such a wonderful learning experience with a very dynamic group of educators and authors. A very special thanks to our moderator, Kirsten Bull, and all of our presenters. It's just been an honor to share this space with you this afternoon. We do hope that you'll join us for our next session on March 30th with Math Talk, where we'll have a chance to explore Math Talk and hear from the founder of Math Talk, Oma Moses, about the work and the importance of engaging communities in math education and experiences. So I will drop that registration link one more time in the chat, and that way you will have it and you can register. And again, Thank you so much for hanging out with us, thinking about all the beautiful math books that we can be using in our spaces with children. And I hope you have a great rest of your week.